You are listening to another AlwaysMoto production.
The AlwaysMoto podcast with your host, David Hogan. We talk moto events from around the world. All the injuries, all the training ins and outs, the bikes, parts and gear inspections. The results, we interview your favourite riders. It's the AlwaysMoto podcast. We occasionally have some coarse language and the odd stuff up along the way. If you don't like it or you don't agree with us, turn it off right now.
I'd like to remind you that he is not a doctor.
Well, that's right, Moto fans. This is episode 174 of the AlwaysMoto podcast, proudly brought to you by technicmotorsport.com. I'm your host, David Hogan. Unfortunately, a little bit under the weather. You might hear it in my voice. It's a little bit deeper, at least it is in my ears, so apologies for that, but we're getting it done this week. We've been off a little bit here after World Supercross. We've had a few things change along the ways, which have caused these things to happen, but we're back with an AlwaysMoto inspection. That's right, this week's show is all about Dura Mousse. It is the product that we have been testing for the last few months. The guys from Outdoor Primal, particularly Peter Nichols, who you'll hear from in this podcast and YouTube show, depending on which one you're listening or watching on. You'll hear Peter. Peter was good enough to hook up with us, set me up with some mousses for my Sherco 300, and we are going to go through everything Dura Mousse on this as we go through this show here. We're going to start off with our thoughts directly for our inspection, and we're going to head into an interview with Peter later in the episode. So stick around. There's plenty to get out of this particular episode. But let's talk sponsors and deals and advertising and whatnot. TechnicMotorsport.com is obviously on board with us, but teams like Honda, Kawasaki, Suzuki, Yamaha, they all have something in common, and they use KYB or Showa suspension, and they service them with KYB and Showa genuine parts. Now, they have an Australian distributor in TechnicMotorsport.com, so why would you get non-genuine seals, bushes, wipers, and other consumables when you can get those genuine parts direct from TechnicMotorsport.com? They have all these things in stock for all the different versions of the forks and shocks out there. And these parts, these genuine parts, they perform better, last longer, and they're only a day away from technicmotorsport.com. So check them out. Their website's awesome. They've got a currency converter. They ship daily with DHL and internationally. And if you get your order in before midday and you're in Australia, you'll get it the next day, because that's what they do, because they do that same day shipping. So if you're international or if you're an Australian-based person doing suspension work, you need to check out technicmotorsport.com. Don't forget our other show sponsors, obviously with technicmotorsport.com. Dura Mousse, obviously, we're talking about them on this particular one. Pivotpegs.com, Competitive Edge Performance, and Tech 167 3D Printing. Saw Joel at some of the last Supercross rounds here. It's good to catch up with him from Tech 167. Obviously, he's got some great printing, 3D printing pieces that are going on. You've heard about our threaded funnel, the caps that he's given us as well that are customized with AlwaysMoto logos. The guy's a legend, makes great products. Check him out. He's got some cool stuff going. If you're in your workshop or just got a bike, you need to check out his stuff. It's cool. All right, don't forget, we've got these. These are our t-shirts, our AlwaysMoto t-shirts. They are $25 plus postage and handling. It generally works out to be about $37 total Australian that it costs you to get one of these t-shirts sent to you. If you order multiples, it's less because you only have one postage fee. If you want one, you need to get one to support the show, which would be awesome for me. You need to email info@alwaysmoto.com, put t-shirt order in the subject line, and we'll get that payment details to you via PayPal. Now, maybe you don't want a t-shirt. That's okay. I won't be disheartened. But maybe you still want to support the show. Our PayPal account, you can donate to the AlwaysMoto show. So head over to PayPal and check it out. Now, all of those things, we've got discount codes, which you're going to hear about for the Dura Mousse. It's going to be in this show, but they're also in the show notes or the bio on our socials, the links to all these pages as well. So go and check that out so you can get to it. All right, let's get into this inspection with Dura Mousse. Now, the Dura Mousse, I am an off-road guy from way back when. I have been using Mousse products probably for about 20 plus years now. I think it was, when did I do my first 4-day? That was 2004. I did my first 4-day. It would have been that year that I learnt about mousses, so that I didn't have to change flat tires in a 4-day, because that obviously makes you lose time, makes your event painful, makes everything harder to do, right? So, and I was at that point, I think I was 17. Yeah, that sounds about right. I was 17. Wasn't great on the tools at that point in terms of changing tires. At least not, I didn't have any man strength. I had the wussy high school hands, you know. Some might say they're still wussy because I'm, you know, been a physio and an office jockey nowadays, most days. But I've got the man strength at least, you know, we're in the gym, maybe. But so I didn't want to be changing tires. So we were introduced to mousses back then by a good friend of mine back then, who was at one of the workshops that I used to do some part-time work in. Stu from Motorcycles, Mick as well. But Stu was my man, who was taking me out on trails, introduced me to mousses, told me what I needed to do, how I needed to lube it, how I needed to fit it, how I maintained it, all that sort of stuff. And from then, so that's 21 years I've been using mousses. I've been basically with couple of different brands along the time, but mostly at that point, obviously back then it was Michelin ones. I've had good use with Michelins. We've used nitros. We've used the, what are they called with Cassins ones? The Rise mousses. We've used the, there's 2 or 3 other brands there that I can't remember at this time, but I've used most of them, right? And they all come through at different points, and they're all a bit deflated when you got them brand new. They're all a bit out of shape when you get them brand new, because of the duration of time that it takes to get them from these, you know, distributors in international waters through shipping to an Australian point to then distribute to the shops. If you're buying it online as well, you've got shipping and that as well. Obviously, these things take time. The Australian shipping, once you got it from your e-tail, doesn't take too long. But it's another point where it's potentially heated in a van while it's getting traveled. It's affecting its life duration, right? And these things only have a couple of months shelf life as it is. So they've always come through, and I talk about it with Peter later on, but I've had that moment where I've had to cut a brand new mousse because it wasn't actually inflated anymore. It was probably a bit long in the shelf life, and it shrunk down. Maybe it'd been in a hot container, shipping container, getting sent over. Who knows? But these Dura Mousses, when I got them, and obviously I set this all up with Peter, and you'll hear him talk about his shipping and his production and distribution of it, and how quickly he's ordering these things and how quickly he's getting them out to you. So he's cut down on that side of things, but the product itself is actually, I feel, a really good product in terms of its build and design quality and the components it's using. Because when I pulled it out of the packet, one, it didn't have any extra. Some of them have heaps of cardboard in them to try and hold them into a ring so that they don't squash down in the box. It didn't have any massive, things like that, but it had enough to hold its shape. But it was perfectly round, both in terms of around the tube, but also around the whole circumference of the tire tube, etc. So it was the right shape from the get-go, which was awesome. Felt nice and firm. It actually looked the right size. I'm sure many of you out there, if you've used the Mousse before and you've pulled it out, you've looked at it, even after you've used it for a while, maybe it's been in your bike for 3 or 4 months, and you pull it out to change the tire over, and you can tell it's shrunk, right? You can tell it's a bit small. These looked the right size from the get-go, and I was like, this is actually, I was feeling really good about it, right, at that point, because I was looking at it going, I've had some bad experiences when I've taken these things out of the boxes, and this one doesn't give me that vibe. So I was really stoked on that side of things. And like I said, listen to Peter later in the episode to hear why that's the case. Now, the product itself is awesome. It comes with its tube, the tube in the box. It also comes with a tub of lube, which is pretty stock standard, but the lube's a different quality as well. It is a specially designed silicone one for these tubes and for better, longer lasting life. And so far, that seems to be the case. I haven't obviously had these for too long. I've had them for about 2 months now. So I haven't had to pull them apart, but I did check them once and they looked fine. You can check them in a couple of ways. You can just pop the edge of the tire out off the bead as such on one side, check it. I've done that. You can also, if you've got where if you're not using valves or rim locks in these and you've just got your taped cover, peel the cover back, stick your finger in there, see if there is any lube coming out still or if it's completely dry. That's one way those couple of ways to check it. So I've done that. These things are looking really good, which is awesome because a lot of them will dry out really quick. Obviously, it's for us here in Australia at the moment when I'm doing this inspection, it's summertime. That can impact it as well. The duration of your rides can impact it. So I've had some pretty decent rides on them in the time that I've had them. Do trail rides out here. I've got a 30-minute loop in my backyard plus forests further out. So I can go for a couple of hours at a time, and I have on these rides. And things are looking great in terms of a lube life duration. So that side of things is really good. Now, let's get to the setup of these. Now, the part that I really like, and I talk about this with Peter as well, I'm going to say this a few times because the interview with Peter, we're sort of preluding that right now, but Peter actually calls you up when you do your order, whether you're online, whether you're ringing him to do the order, whether you do it through a shop. Peter will get in touch with you and talk to you about your setup and your riding and your weight. These things all impact the options that he has available for you to choose from the Dura Mousse range. He has multiple options here. He has a softie, he has an enduro version, and he has an MX version in the normal mousse arrangement. He also then has his mousse rounds, which then have a soft and a medium versions as well. And that they're all different prices, and they suit different situations. For me, he talked about my weight, the fact that I'm doing more cross-country, speed style, single-track race riding and racing, not so much fire road, not so much hard enduro. So he fitted into that. But then also the interesting point of this is he then matched my tyres, which is something that I don't think anyone's ever really considered before, me particularly when I'm ordering a mousse. I just go, oh, I need an XYZ pressure. I don't consider the carcass of the tyre when I've been doing that, because I gather you probably are a little bit when you're doing it from a hard enduro, because you're always getting a gummy type tyre that is really soft and flexible in the sidewall and the knob. And then obviously you're trying to put holes in mousses and soft mousses or older mousses, or you're cutting them down to try and soften them. So you're trying to get that softer feel. For me, in a racing sense, I'm just like, right, it's a 10, 12 PSI, goes in the tyre. I use this tyre, Bob's your uncle. I never really considered that, but he suggested that I should. And it's great because the example he gave, and for anyone who's a Michelin user, you'll understand this one. The Starcross 5s of the last few years have had a very soft tyre wall, which makes them easy to fit, but also when you are riding them, they have a good feel because they flex on the tyre wall when they're under load and when you're turning, and it gives you a nice feel in the tyre. The new Starcross 6s have changed all that. They've gone similar to the Dunlops and the Pirellis, where they have a stiffer side wall. There's not as much give in those, so they're harder to mount when you're changing them, but they also then sit solid on the bike and they don't flex so much when you're under load in your corners. So I've lost a little bit of my lean angle grip with these tyres now that I'm running Starcross 6s, but I've adjusted, I've gotten used to that. But what that means when I'm sticking in my regular mousse is that I've actually still using the same sort of mousses over the last few months and years when these tyres have transitioned. But I'm having a different tyre feel because my mousse is now stiff as well as stiffening the tyre. So I needed to adjust that to try and accommodate for the stiffer sidewall. Now, that's what Peter suggested. So we're running an enduro one at the moment because that's what I felt I should do. But on Peter's advice, and I think what I'm going to do next time is actually run the softer version in the rear at least, if not the front as well. We'll see how we go with that, depending on whether it's available for my front tyre sizes as well. So there's factors in all this as well. But 21s, 18s, 19s, they're all available there. And they have 9100s, 8100s for your fronts, and then 129s, 120, 140/80s, all sorts of things for their rear sizings as well. So they've got the range covered, which is the point that I need to check off here. But the fact that Peter got involved, checked my weight, checked my riding style, my riding location, terrain, and then my tyre choices, makes this setup so personal that I feel this is a massive selling point for anybody out there listening. You're going to get something that you actually want and need and will help you perform on track, which is obviously we want to enjoy our ride, right? So we want to have these things in the right areas, and that's what Peter is doing here. Now, upon arrival, obviously you're getting the stuff, like I said, you get the tube, the lube. You also get a sticker kit that goes on for your rims. Now, I mentioned this later in the episode as well, but there's different colors and multiple of them so that you can do top and bottom of your rim on both sides, on both wheels, which is fantastic. So you get plenty of stickers to do it. It makes it look nice. You'll see that in our images on the fullnoise.com.au article. and maybe our social post. I don't know if you'll see those on there, but you probably will. But yeah, so there's little touches like that, along with the fact that, and anyone that has mounted a moose knows that they're difficult at times, especially when they get older. The moose loses a little bit of that pressure feeling, and it doesn't always pop the tire onto the bead without some assistance. And that assistance usually comes in the form of you jamming the compressor into the valve hole, where there's no valve, obviously, because you're not running a tube, but you shove it in there, you're blocking your thumb onto the rim lock hole or around the rim lock with a rag, trying to block the air and trying to get it to pop out and then let the air back out of that by just taking the compressor gun out. Now, that's all well and good. But man who's done this once or twice knows that you can actually cut out a valve out of a tube, silicon that into the rim, and then basically use the valve that, like it would be in a normal tube, as your entry point, so you can put your normal compressor fitting on it and pump it up easier. Peter supplied that in the box with that. So I got 2 of those when I got them, which was awesome. So that's just a nice little touch there from a man that knows his product, uses his product, backs his product, and does the things right. So that's a nice little tip there. But you can always not use them if you're just old school and love the compressor setup. Also found too, obviously these ones were new when I installed them. Didn't need to do that, which is nice. Sometimes when I've installed new ones, obviously like I said about them being smaller and shrunk and whatnot, you got to compressor them at that time, and that sort of sucks too. But as they get older, that's a natural occurrence. So we installed these. I use the Rabaconda these days. I've figured out how to do it, but I'm still getting the hang of it when I'm doing the rears. The fronts is easy, but the rears is a bit of a challenge still, trying to line up my pressure point with my rim lock on the thing and using the arm the right ways. Just still getting the knack of it, but it is much easier. It's a better height these days. So if anyone's out there wondering about tire changes, Rabaconda's the go. I've just had an old tire ring that my dad made up for me for back in the day. That's been sensational over the years. But now that I'm getting into this, getting older, got to bend over. It's much easier with the Rabaconda with the arm lever on it up at that height. It's great. So I use that. Now I got these fitted up in just about the regular amount of time. Yes, the front was put up a little bit of fight, but that's what I expect with a new pressurized moose tube. It's going to take a bit of effort, and it did. These will get easier to fit the more that they are used. Now, if I take that off now, it'll probably go on super easy, like the used tubes always do. They tend to just, everything fits in better after it's been used. It's a bit more flexible and whatnot. So we'll get to that in time, but it was no different than any other fitment for me. The lube was great. You'll hear Peter has a different technique than what I do later on, but we can hear that later in the show. In terms of, let's get to the feel, the part that you want to know about. When you're on track with these, how do they go? Do they feel any different to any other moose tube? They're the same, right? The part of these is that they are new. A new moose tube always is a bit hard for your feeling like. It's hard in terms of not giving the knob enough flexion in the tire to then accept the terrain at times. So it takes a little while for these things to bed in. But once you're going, you adjust. You have that natural dead feeling like you always do when you wheelie and hit a rock or you hit the log. You get that dead feeling. There's no springiness because the tube has air. These mooses just have that dead feeling. That's what you expect from a moose tube. Now, I've been on these plenty of times since we put them in. I have no different in terms of the feel or performance as I have from any other brand. They all are a top notch in that sense. Once they're in the bike and fitted, they're great. What I do find so far is that my feeling is consistent. It's not changing as the tire is getting older so far. There will be a point where that hits and you'll start noticing that it shrinks, but I haven't got there. Now, in other times with other brands, I would get there very quickly and I would have to start chopping them, spacing them, putting pieces in, 6-inch, 8-inch lengths to try and put them into there to try and space out the tube to give it the pressure back and to give it that feel that it had at new. Now, that's never going to be exactly the same, and then obviously you get an unbalanced wheel feel at times if you're on a road. Now, in a single-track race format that I normally do, you don't notice that. But every once in a while when I go for a trail ride with some mates and we head down either a fire road or occasionally end up on a tar road just to link up a couple of trails, when you've put a piece of mousse in to cut it and put the piece in, that's when you get the woo, 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 woo feeling as you're going down down the road. And it always gives me the shits because I'm like, damn, that thing's probably dead by now. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen with these, because this so far is not giving me any of that vibe where it's shrinking excessively quickly. So that tells me this product is going to last a long time. Now, Peter also mentions, and this sounds crazy to me, and I don't know if we're going to get that far, but he said 50 hours to 100 hours of duration in these tubes, which would be sensational, because I've never got anywhere near that in any other product. So far, I'd say I have about 15 hours on these things, and that's a pretty good amount, and nothing's changed. Like I said, the consistent feel is there. My front tire is consistent. My rear tire is consistent. I have a feel that I'm familiar with on each and every ride, on each and every terrain as it changes throughout my rocky sections, my sandier sections, my regular hard pack sections. So that side of things is awesome. Very satisfied with that aspect of it. Feel and obviously performance and duration as main key points here, because obviously mousse tubes are not cheap, and you don't want to be having to replace them too frequently. By the sounds of this duration and what I'm getting so far out of this performance, I'm not going to have that issue, which is awesome. But let's talk price, and this is where the AlwaysMoto 10 code, AlwaysMoto, Always and Moto are capitalized, 10, 10. That's the discount code for this. When you order, you can put that code in and get a discount. They also have a bundling code as well. If you automatically applied, I should say, if you're ordering 5 or 10 mousses at a time, you can get discounts from a bundle aspect. But if you use our AlwaysMoto discount, you can just order one or just one set and get a 10% discount. So Peter's got that set up. Now, price-wise, these are competitively priced. They're in that range as per all the other products. For the Enduro version that I'm using, which is that mid-range 10 to 12 PSI, it's $196 a mousse tube. For the Softy and the MX versions, which the Softy is down to like 6 to 8 PSI, the MX version's up higher at 14 to 16, those ones are actually $216 for a tube. There's a little bit more to those ones. In terms of the mousse rounds, and again, you have two options. You have a very soft version. You have your 3 to 7 PSI, and you have your mid-range, your 5 to 9 PSI. Now, this is for your hard enduro guys out there. The mousse rounds are like the spheres, the balls that go through. So they call them mousse rounds. $198 for the set. So, guys, these are competitively priced. If you get that AlwaysMoto 10 discount and apply it, you're in business, mate. There's not too many times you're going to get a discount code, discount off a mousse, let alone, multiples as well. So get in there and use it. Now, like I said, I'm stoked with this product so far. I want to check back in on this in a couple of months' time when I've really put it through the ringer in terms of just kept riding on it and seeing how long it goes before I notice that consistency of feel drop and before I've got to cut it and put spacer in it. We'll see what that is. We'll report back on that on the AlwaysMoto show at some point. So keep listening. You'll hear it, all right? Now, to get yourself some of these, you can go to duramousse.com.au. That will link you back to the outdoorprimal.com.au site, which you can use outdoorprimal.com.au/duramousse, but duramousse.com.au is the way to get them. If you want to check out fullnoise.com.au, all my links in bio, you'll have the link straight there, so you won't have to worry about spelling mistakes. All right, so check those out. Full Noise will have the article, and you'll have a link just to click straight on. So that's how you can get it. If I've missed anything here, guys, you want any questions answered about them, get in touch. Send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook. AlwaysMoto is our page. You can get in touch there. You can email us at info@alwaysmoto.com. That'll get you straight to us, because we want you to get some feedback on these. We want you to be happy with your purchase. We want to make sure that your purchase is exactly what it should be. And maybe you using these already and you have feedback on it as well. There are plenty of people out there using Dura Mousses already. Like Peter will mention, it's the DM31, which is the KTM off-road team, the Daniel Milner team. They're using them. They have done for last year. They're signed on again for this year coming. There's guys in the hard enduro scene using them. There's plenty of people out there using them. Peter himself has done hundreds of hours on these things by the sounds of it, testing them, had no issues. So he knows his product inside and out, and he trusts them. And believe me, I'm trusting it too. So if you want to get some, go ahead and get it. It's a good product to do. All right, that's our thoughts. Get in touch if you wanted to find out more. We're going to go now. We're going to flip over to our interview with Peter, and we're going to end it off with a quick outro at the end. So we'll be back, but here's the interview with Peter Nichols. All right, joining us in this second half of the AlwaysMoto inspection podcast that we're doing today, obviously on the Dura Mousses, we've got the man himself who's actually a part of this for the Australian side of things. He's from Outdoor Primal is the business that he's running and owning, and he's the one that's responsible for importing the Dura Mousse into Australia. They also design part of this, and we'll get into more of this in a second here with him. His name's Peter Nichols, and Peter, welcome to the show, mate.
Hey guys, David, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for joining us. I made the stuff up already with the Queensland and the time zones. I do it all the time with Queenslanders. I just forget you're on a different zone at this point in time, the year. So we managed to work it out. Well, here we are. We're going to talk some Dura Mousse.
Yep, thank you.
So you guys started out with this with Outdoor Primal itself as a bit of a smaller side venture into the moto industry side of things back in 2002 with some filter skin side of things. But the Dura Mousse themselves, you guys have picked that up along the lines around 2019 and started running with it. How did this all come about for you guys?
Basically just riding a bit of enduro, flat tyres, plenty of mates with flat tyres. So then we got into the heavy duty tubes like everyone, and then sleeving tubes, and then come across the idea and researched the mousse setup. So from there was basically wholesaling some of the mousses, and it sort of grew from there. Good sales with the mates, back out of my shed sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, found the right product as in the Dura Mousse, and then the gods sort of led us to owning the .com.au here in Australia. So then I'm fortunate that I've got a good mate who's an importer, and now we're importing the product, both the motorcycles and the push bike side of things.
Yeah, nice. And glad you touched on the push bike side of things there, because you're actually involved in the design process, but that's not for the moto you were saying to us before we hit record. That's mainly for the mountain bike side of things, that you're actually designing the product that is coming out and being used, but you're testing across both areas of the Dura Mousse side of things as well.
Yeah, David, that's correct. So definitely testing with the manufacturer with the motorcycle products. So whether that be the Dura Mousse rounds, the sizing and the compounds that are available, and we're testing and giving feedback. Also doing a bit of off-road adventure bike stuff as well. So, it's sort of been interesting and good to work with the manufacturer. Then on the push bike side of things, for the last 4 years, again, been working with the manufacturer with his materials and the concept and design. And then that's evolved into a design that's been 100% myself with the manufacturer's material. And that's really going well. I think down in Victoria, we've got 3 state champions just this last few weeks running our product. Those guys are saving a couple of $1,000s a year in wheel repairs, extra traction, and they reckon we've sort of got the best product on the market in the push bike side of things. So hopefully a big future for us with the Dura Mousse Star. But the prime business area that we're working on at the moment is the motorcycle mousses.
Yeah, interesting that the push bike side of things is getting some of that good results. What goes into designing this, but for you, what's your background in this sort of thing? Have you got like some sort of engineering or something along the lines, or just a passion here that you've picked up along the way? Yeah,
somewhat. So I was into BMX as a young fella and sort of got to state sort of levels and got a bit bored with it, so went motorcycling. I actually designed the local BMX track here many years ago.
Yeah, nice.
And it's pretty well. I actually designed 2. I designed one when I was probably a young teenager, and then as maybe a 30-year-old when my kids were involved in it, then done the latest design, which is pretty much what it is now. So my background, I've been a telecommunications designer and then an electrical designer over 40 years.
Yep.
So lots of CAD background in that design, and then just got a habit a drug addiction to the motorcycle push bike worlds. And so, yeah, design is an interest, and I've had the, good tools and good knowledge and, things that work. And it's all about networking as well. So, coming up with ideas, getting good testers around you, giving product to testers and being receptive to listening to their thoughts and your thoughts and what works. Weight's a big thing for the push bike scenario. So the manufacturer is really good in that he went back to the drawing table and come up with a lighter product just to get that weight down. That was a bit of a concern. So just having really good people around you and being able to express what you need. So if you have a look at our website, our duramousse.com.au, and the push bike side of things, the insert is quite shapely. So if you can imagine trying to get that shape across the line over to the manufacturer to get them designed, and it's a world of nations. So the product is actually the same as the motorcycle mousses. The product is European. It's manufactured in China, but the molds are made in Taiwan. So to try to tie that all together and get the product back to yourself the way that you designed it takes, it's taken me nearly 4 years for the push bike side of things.
That's a big process to go through, and obviously then to get one made, get it out to you to test it, and then give some feedback and tweak all those things. It's a long way between test days, I gather.
Yeah, it is. And, you come up with the design and they go, yep, rightio, that's really good. We'll make a 29-inch from a 27. Yep. So then a handful of them turn up and lo and behold, they're 20% bigger. And you're pulling your hair out.
Guys, come on.
Come on, yeah, a lot to it. And then even on the adventure side of things, so we gave them some dimensioning, and we've turned up here and they were just too big to get into the tyres.
Yeah, that's a big problem in the first place. If you can't get it in there, that's going to be an issue. But you're talking like now, like I'm thinking as we're going, like you're talking push bike at one speed and one weight and different design. You got moto at a different level again, and then adventure, you got the different speeds. It's going to create more heat, and you're designing something very different in each three categories there, aren't you? Like, but you're going to be able to borrow from each one to improve the other two, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you take that skill with you. So when we first started off with the push bike stuff, we were trying to put solid mousses without air.
Yep.
But then quickly you're reminded that the tyres aren't robust enough to fit that solid mousse in the tyre. So you go and buy some brand new tyres, eventually get the mousse in there and get it fitted, but it's got a big wobble in it because you've torn the carcass of the tyre.
Yep.
So then you've got to go, rightio, we can't do that. What are the other manufacturers doing? No, they're all doing air assisted, so they're all tubeless set up with the insert in there, and the air is topping it up. But no one was running a run flat. So we had to sort of come up with, what's the best design for a run flat, but to also keep the weight down. So, yeah, lots to it. And the same with the adventure mousses. What kills mousses is friction. What stops friction is the silicone gel.
Yep.
So we've got guys running grease nipples in their rims, and you can go and buy an 85-gram Repco grease gun, and every day or two you give your rims, which you generally got 4 mini grease nipples in them, give them a squirt of grease, and that keeps the lubricant up there. So we're getting some good kilometres out of the mousses with that silicone gel injection.
Yeah, interesting way of getting it in there quick and easy without having to open it all back up like moto guys generally and that's a good question. We're here right now. I was going to ask this later on, but maintenance wise for the mousses, you've got to do this every so often. What's your recommendations for a moto guy at this point with like re-lubing the tube? Like we've hit this a bit earlier, but yeah.
So generally I recommend 30 to 40 hours for a re-lube. So most of the sales go to serious trail riders. And most trail riders generally will turn their rear tyre, and that's probably around that 30-hour of usage mark. So in the wintertime, is good to turn, when that tyre needs to be turned, whack it off and lubricate it. Depending on what sort of speed you've been doing, if you've been doing fast open type trails, do the front one as well. If it's more slow technical, second, third gear type stuff, you can go the second time round so every rear tyre replacement, relube your front one.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so again, generally what kills mooses is friction,
Mm-hmm.
and what stops the friction is silicone gel.
Yeah, and your silicon gel, it seems it's obviously a different one that's specific from your manufacturer. That's for your materials of the mousse. I gather it's because it's a little bit different from what I was using previously with other brands out there.
Yeah. So from all accounts, we've had a few guys do some reviews and tests and indicate that we've got the best gel on the market. So it's a pure silicone gel. You can use some other products. Steer clear of any water-based product. They're just rubbish. The other thing that's frustrating from my end is people who go and grease a mousse before they put it in the tyre, just making an unnecessary mess and wiping the grease off as they're putting it in the tyre. Lubricate your tyre on the inside with the supplied gel and just put some dabs on the rim tape, and everything's clean and tidy, and that's by far the best and easiest way to do it.
Well, you're going to hate my little video later on when I was changing the tyre because I've always, for whatever reason, always just lubed the tube. I lube the tyre as well, like the inner, and do the two together. I find they slip together easier when there's a little bit on both, but obviously you're not a fan of the tube lubing part. It is messy, I will give you that part.
Yeah, and I just see it gets wiped off and it just dirties your tools, and then it puts a lot more silicone gel on the bead of the tyre. And that's the last thing you want to do. You want to try to keep that very clean.
Yeah.
So just by lubing, 3/4. So you get an 85 gram tube of silicone with each mousse.
Mm-hmm.
So 3/4 of that goes in the tyre, and just brush it around evenly. And then the remainder goes on the rim tape. And then you can install the dry mousse into the tyre. You can do a dry run on a mousse too, just to see how it's going to fit in the tyre.
Yeah.
And then if you're happy with that, pull it out, grease it up, the tyre, put the mousse in, and then get the mousse onto the wheel.
Yeah,
which
nice.
is the hard part.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you talk to people like yourself who either, designed, worked with it really heavily, and you've obviously done both of those things, and didn't get taught it from somebody else secondhand on, this is the best way to do it. You find out a little tweak that's just maybe, you should have known all along, and that's probably one that makes a lot of sense thinking about it right now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm fortunate too. I've got a tyre mounting tool from Estonia. So it's actually got a foot pedal on it. It's the premium tyre changer in the industry. I've had guys, for instance, at the Chook Chase up here in Queensland, I've had guys sit there and just goo and gar, and they're quite impressed at the tool and how easy it is. A couple of those guys are in the mines, and they'll actually go and buy that $2,000 tool just to make their life easy.
Nothing like a mining salary to solve a problem.
Yeah. They're not worried about the dollars. They just want a really good tool.
Yeah.
So by having a great tool makes life easier.
It does.
For me, it's fitting mousses, and I've done hundreds and hundreds of them. It's replicating that same scenario every time.
That is the trick for a lot of people and I fall in this category at some points too, where you do a bunch of them all in a row and you get really good at it, right? And then it might be for whatever reason you get an injury, you have a bunch of family things, you don't go for a ride for as often as you would like, and then it sort of becomes a couple of months before you're like, oh, I actually need to change that again. And then when you go to do it, your technique's shot to pieces and you started in the wrong point, or you're trying to take too big of a bite with the wrong tire lever at the wrong angle or something, and you end up just fighting it the whole way through. So, yeah, there is a frequency to this that makes this a lot simpler, because other times you just end up swearing or throwing a lever.
Yeah. And the bigger fellas who are big, muscular, strong fellas with big levers, no rim buddies, they will be breaking tyre beads. So you've got to be careful. You've got to finesse it. You can't manhandle the change. No. And even you may not break the bead today, but you've stretched it. And all of us have done this. You've stretched it, and then it will fail down the track. And it won't be as you're loading the bike up. It'll be in the middle of nowhere, and it'll cause you some grief.
Yeah, well, it's a sure sign when you take that tire off to replace it, and you're looking at it with the once you've taken the mousse out of it, and you can see that little wave in the body. And you're just like, oh yeah, that one shouldn't have been on there. I've gone too hard at that last time I put it on. Like I've seen that a couple of times myself and thought, you can hear that like poppy, that like noise, and you're like, oh wait, hold on, back off.
Yeah,
So,
we've all done it. And especially your brand new tyre, you go and destroy it. Or we've all done it. That's part of the learning curve.
It is. Now, these products for Dura Mousse, we've sort of skipped a little bit further where I was going to go with this, but the tubes themselves, you actually have a few options in them. You're not just buy a mousse and it's the one size fits all. Like you fit the obviously you fit your rim, but then you end up with just generally there's one pressure in a lot of the brands out there. There's a few that are starting to get a couple of options. But you actually got 3 straight out the rip in terms of different pressures that you can run with these mousse setups. That's a nice handy little piece for us straight out the gate to make your riding options. But then also what you've done with myself when we're setting this up, adjusting it to my tyre choices as well. So it's not just about the terrain and what you're looking for from a grip point of view. It's about making it work with your tyre better, which I don't think anybody else really does.
No, so uniquely in Australia, I don't believe anyone else is doing it. There's a couple of our stores that are doing it now. They've sort of learned by what we're doing. So we're fortunate. We've got front sizes, 2 different sizes, the 8100 and the 9100 being the bigger one.
Mm-hmm.
The rear size, we've got the 120/90, which is a smaller mousse, and the 140/80/120/100, which is our larger mousse. Now, in the front, we've got 2 compounds. We've got an Enduro, which is a 10-12 PSI, and then we've got the motocross version, the MX version, MX rally type version, which is 14-16 PSI. In the rear, we've got the soft version, which is around about 6 to 8 PSI. We've got the Enduro version, which is 10-12 PSI, and then the MX version, which is 14-16 PSI. Now, with that, there can be 6 PSI difference. I just talk about the rear mousses and rear soft mousse. There can be 6 PSI difference with our big soft mousse, depending on the tyre that you put it in. So if you go and put it in a 140/80 Enduro, a Michelin Enduro tyre, it will be around about 6-7 PSI. But you go and put that very same mousse in, for instance, a Dunlop MX53 in a 110/118, it'll be more like 12 PSI. So what I've had to do, I've got a spreadsheet on our website with over 750 tyres and 3 or 4 combinations that we've got with that. Uniquely, every order I get, I phone the customer and have a chat to them. 1, what tyres you're running. 2, what body weight are you? 3, what sort of trails are you riding? Are you riding fast open or are you riding slow technical? Are you riding hard enduro? Because we've also got the Dura Mousse rounds for the hard enduro guys as well. So you're not dealing with a counter person, whether it's male or female, that really, may be a great salesman, but they know zero about motorcycle.
Yeah.
I've got a good passion for the bikes and ride with, up to 100 people a month with trail rides and a little bit of motocross, a little bit of enduro. So really in the industry and just take notice of that. So we've got professionals, as in the Milner team is signed up for us now for the 2nd year for 26. So we've got 3 full-on, the best in Australia professionals with them. For the last 3 years, we've also had the factory Kawasaki team. So we've got good knowledge at the top level. I've got some ladies that are riding, and they're just very occasional trail riders, so they may only be 60 kilos. And then a lot of the mates in this area, whether they're hard enduro, whether they're enduro, we've got up-and-coming juniors on the Queensland and Australian scene, like Mason Phillips, for instance, that are doing both motocross and enduro with the mousses. So our mousses, depending on what they're looking for, we can go across all fields. Hard enduro, motocross.
Yeah, nice. Like I said, you got that coverage straight out there that you can, and then you customizing. You mentioned it there, and I wrote it down as like the big point of difference for you in the service that I got basically when I was buying these. You can obviously go on and buy a mousse from just about any store or any of these online, e-tailers these days, but there's no connection and no knowledge other than what you have yourself or from your mates to go, this is my right choice for my right setups. But what I got when we spoke about my setup and you helping me get these set up for my Sherco and the riding that I do, it was nice to have your input and knowledge of obviously these many years that you've done this for into that to then get the right choice. And I think that would be something that a lot of people that are watching, listening this are going to go, hey, that's how I should have bought these in the first place. I needed some input, but that's your big point of difference. And I like that you do that. And I like that connection that you're having with each of your customers as well, because you're giving them an opportunity to, a little bit look behind the curtain.
Yeah. And my experience too, like I've got 10 rear wheels with all different tyres on, all different brands, all different sizes. Both front and rear. So I've actually got 10 rear wheels. They're the biggest talking point. So then you can talk to the customers and they can actually relate to you when you say, I've actually got one of those on a rear wheel. I've got it with a big moose or I've got it with a small moose, and that's what I'm finding is really, really good. This is a good choice, but I've also got another choice that's similar if you've got these issues going on with that tyre setup. So you can just really relate to your customers, and that relates to, sales, because what I'm sort of trying to do, I'm not only after the sales to them, I'm after the sales to all their mates.
Yeah, and that's the best way to go in our little industry here in Australia, is to obviously get one guy in the group with them and having a great experience, and because it'll all of a sudden just migrate across to all the other bikes in that riding crew. So yeah, if you can make the one happy, you'll make 20 of them if his mate's happy as well. So yeah, it's a good way to go about it.
Yep.
So I've got a couple of random things for you, the questions to go at the end here. But obviously with mooses, there's a bit of a history out there, and this is where you ended up with the moose rounds, I gather. But the hard enduro guys are known for doing weird things with mooses in their rear tyre setups to try and get maximum grip. Hole saws through them. I've seen them with multiple, probably 20 or 30 hole saws through them, cutting the top off them so that they're flat and stuff like that. Does that stuff just make you cringe and you think you should just use our moose rounds, or what is that? Do you see a purpose to it, or what do you do when you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is a purpose to it. And it's all about experimenting, and technology continues to change. Mm-hmm. So just because it worked 3 years ago or didn't work, doesn't mean it won't work tomorrow. So with the new products coming through, technology, tyre changes. So for instance, if I talk about some of the Michelin Starcross 5s, they used to be a really soft carcass tyre. Yeah. Now they've gone to a Starcross 6 and they're a really stiff carcass tyre. So people used to love the 5s. Hear a lot of different stories with the 6s. Yeah. And the same thing goes on with mooses. So technology changes. Depends on your body weight. So for instance, our Dura Mousse rounds, I sort of recommend them for people that are under 100 kilos. Yep. So one of my wholesalers, he's a big fella. I think he's nearly a gold class hard enduro expert. Okay. He'll destroy a set of rounds in 6 or 8 hours. Oof. But yet his partner, who's 60 kilos, will have those rounds. They're still in there after over 2 years.
Yeah. So, but that's load capacity at rate and stuff. So yeah, you're obviously just hitting a different market there that they need to adjust their setup. So yeah.
So drilling, whether it's a 16 mil hole, and we'll do that for some mini bike mooses where we're retrofitting into the big wheel 85s and that. Okay. The mooses are too hard, so they need to be softened up. So 16 mil holes are really good. 20 mil holes is generally what I drill. 2022. Other guys will use 25 mil. Yeah. Some people, I sort of experiment. I have experimented with the soft ones, but I do like drilling also the enduro version. Now with the enduro version, the pore per square inch, so how tight the compound of the moose is denser with the enduro version, the enduro compound. So they handle drilling better than a soft. So you'll get more life out of an enduro drilled moose than what you will a soft moose. But then guys will go and set up for one race. They don't want it to last more than a race, or they're happy for it to just last a race. So horses for courses, it's all experimenting and to your liking. Amateurs do not like the bead dropping off the tyre. Professionals don't care at all. They don't. It drops off. So what they're looking for is maximum traction.
Yeah, and obviously in those hard enduro situations, it means the difference between making it up to the top of the hill or being stuck at the bottom. They're just going to go with the fact that I got to the top. I don't care what my rim looks like. I don't care whether the moose is shot afterwards. They're only worried about getting to the top. So, yeah.
That's correct. But then also they'll be sponsored by a tyre manufacturer.
This does help, yeah.
Yeah. So then we've sort of recommended, for instance, with our rounds, one particular brand works really, really well. Some of the other brands don't stay on the bead as well.
Okay.
But, if you're the likes of Connor Hensey down in Tassie, he's using a particular tyre brand. It doesn't stay on the bead quite as well, but he doesn't care. He's just looking for that bag out, for that maximum traction. They're running multiple rim locks. It can't come off the rim.
Yeah.
It may come off the bead, and they're doing slow technical. It's not fast open.
Yeah, obviously you got to like you were saying before, matching the product with the tire, with the terrain, with the weight. It has all got to link up here. So you can't just go ahead and put this soft ass setup in a thing and expect to go 100 k's down a fire road without dying somewhere along there. So,
and an athlete that's supported by a particular tire brand, they need to be using that.
Yeah, obviously, I think my message here is like unless you're willing to spread a lot of money out, don't worry about drilling holes in your mooses and stuff.
Oh no, look, they can. It's whatever they find best. A customer will experiment and they'll come up with what they believe is good. It will reduce the life, but it will increase the traction.
Yeah. Now, next one for me, the one that always stood out for me when I would buy a moose. And you get it brand new, supposedly brand new, and you take it out of the box and it's either completely squared or, completely distorted in shape, or you then fit it into the tire thinking it's new and it's shrunk. It's already shrunk before you've even used it, right? Because the expiration date has been basically reached just in transit time getting here. Because of shipping and whatever else reasons, they're not extremely popular in terms of some of the bigger companies to get it out to here for Australia as not necessarily the biggest of markets, right? And so then you're always there, and I always half had a tear coming out when you're cutting a brand new product to try and gap it and put a new, another piece in to make it actually work. When I pulled yours out, they were perfectly round. They were perfectly shaped. They fitted in straight away. Now, I don't know whether they were just some nice fresh ones, but they seemed like this was just your usual arrangement here. Nothing special, nothing fancy. Just this is how they always came. Is that something you've tried to, build into the product here and how it gets to the customer? Because I was just pleasantly surprised that it looked like it should and it went in the way it should and didn't have to be cut. Didn't look anything near being deflated at all.
Yeah. So look, we run the Dura Mousse brand, and I believe it's by far the best in Australia. Mm-hmm. That's why we've got the professional teams running our product. We haven't signed yet, but they're in testing for a high-end MX team for us this year. So we'll get into that for 26. Mm-hmm. So our product, I believe, has got a 3-year plus shelf life. I import generally every 4 to 6 months, so we're getting plenty of stock. Yep. We've got good turnover of stock. Every moose that I shoot out the door, I measure before it goes out the door. Nice. One, to ensure that the manufacturer has put it in the correct box. Yep. Because all that it does, if I send a moose over to Western Australia or down to Tasmania and I get a phone call from the purchaser of, hey, this moose isn't right, then I've got to outlay for another moose and the postage down to them to rectify the situation. So the easy thing for me is I crack open every box. Yep. And I generally put a used valve stem in there off a tube.
I was going to get to that too. Yeah.
And I measure it up. So I feel the compound. I look at the size. I've got a spec sheet there. So I've been doing it this long. I can just have a look at it and go, yep, that's the smaller size or that's the bigger size. And then with a tape measure, I measure the circumference. I've got a spec sheet there, so every one that goes out the door is within spec, and there's no mistakes.
Yeah,
So
I thought you must have been doing something along these lines because, like I said, when I got it out, I was like, this is ready to go. Not like there's been plenty of times that I've bought these and I've been like, oh, not again. It's crap basically from the get go, and it's disappointing. And like I said, you almost feel like you spent $200-$300, whatever it is, and they're cutting this brand new product, and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? You know, like,
yeah, well, look, I don't like cutting mousses from new. I generally feel that the mousse should go in the tyre nice and firm from original. It's only after maybe on the third tyre for the rear, for instance, that it's staying on the bead well.
mm-hmm.
The pressure may have dropped away after the third tyre. So generally, people should get 50 hours out of a tyre. I would expect trail riding.
Give or
It's
take,
generally
yeah.
good for you, is sort of what I find and what I find the mates get. So, at least the 100-hour mark, it may be getting a little bit soft. So by cutting a mousse and putting a piece in it, for instance, it'll go from 8 psi back up to your 10, 12 again.
Yeah.
As long as it's staying on the bead. If it's staying on the bead, it's the circumference has shrunk down and it hasn't got the sidewall pressure to keep it out on the bead. That's the time to move it on. If it's staying on the bead nicely, but the pressure's just dropped away, you can cut them and put a piece in them. That's quite regular and it's easy to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously I haven't had these ones for long enough to get to any of that point, but I feel like just looking at them and the way they've gone in so far and the use that I've had on them, I feel like they're going to last longer than the other ones, and I'll come back to this at some point down the track in a couple of months and bring it up on the show. But yeah, I feel like we're in a good point already for them, so that was good. You touched on it just then too. A couple of little things that I noticed when there's a man that's in charge that gives a rat's about what he's doing. That valve stem that you said is a touch that a specialized person would know about and not many people elsewise would give a damn about, but you've got those in there ready to go, and that's to help you silicone it into the rim so you can put your air gun on it and help pop it out when you're doing the change. So to have that supplied was very cool.
Yep.
And then the fact that, I know stickers are stickers and that, but like you had rim stickers in there to obviously advertise the product, but you had enough on there to do everything. And it wasn't just like one and end up with an odd side, one wheel having one and not the other. You had enough to do everything, both sides, top and bottoms. I was loving it. It was, you've just, the finishing touches on a product experience.
Yeah. And things like that information sheet where it tells you, clean the rim really well, apply a bit of heat to the rim with a hairdryer, rub the sticker down, and then a bit more heat again. That activates the glue. So just things like that to get a good look, to get a good appearance works well, and experience.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, Peter, like I said, those little touches show me that you care about what you're doing, and like my experience so far with the Dura Mousse has been nothing short of great. So I'm looking forward to see how they last, because that's always the next part of this. And like I said, we'll bring that up at some other point down the track in the show. But thank you for joining us. Is there anything else you want to touch on here before we sign off on this part of the show?
No. So yeah, duramousse.com.au, you can find us. Outdoor Primal is our business name, but Dura Mousse, you can, our website sort of feeds off her as well. Have a look at our Dura Mousse Star, the push bike inserts. They're going really well. If you find yourself damaging some wheels on your mountain bikes, on your downhill bikes, try our inserts. You won't be damaging our rims. Just in the last couple of weeks, we've got 3 Victorian downhill champions in their various classes. So yeah, the product's going really, really well.
Oh, all sounds positive, mate. We'll direct them to the websites. We'll put links in the show notes after this as well. So we'll have a little promo for the social. So it'll all be linked up. They'll get there. But yeah, Peter, thanks for your time, mate. We'll get out on the Dura Mousses.
Good on. Thank you.
All right, guys and girls, we are back on the Always Moto show. Thanks for sticking around. That was our interview with Peter Nichols. Plenty of insight into it there, and as you can tell, if you get in touch with Peter about purchasing one of these products from him for the Dura Mousse, even his filter skins, he knows what he's talking about. He's going to help you set that up. It's that personal touch that I really like about the brand and him and how this all works. So get in touch. He will hook you up. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Whatever you're doing, do the opposite as well next week. So you should be subscribed to our YouTube channel. You should be following our podcast feed on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or iHeartRadio. Wherever it is that you're listening, we've got this out there. So subscribe to the YouTube channel but as well, or follow it on the podcast feed of your choice. Don't forget the t-shirt orders in. The voice is still struggling here. Sorry, guys and girls. Don't forget to get these t-shirt orders in. info@alwaysmoto.com. Don't forget to check out the fullnoise.com.au articles. We've got our muck off Blaster XL, this big bad boy. It's up on the site there as well. This article for Dura Mousse is going to be up there as well. Check it out. There's plenty of our work over on fullnoise.com.au. But that's it for another show. Thanks to technicmotorsport.com, Dura Mousse, pivotpegs.com, Competitive Edge Performance, Tech 167 3D Printing for the show support. Thanks to the wife and kids for letting me get this done yet again. And we'll see you at the track. And given that this is the last one probably before Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll see you in 2026 for some AMA Supercross and every other off-road moto event we can come up with. We'll be covering here as best we can on Always Moto.